Hey everyone, welcome back to Topher Drives, where this week I've been daily driving this 2027 Infiniti QX65 Autograph. And well, if you've been on the internet or watched TV in the last few months, you've probably seen an advertisement or two, or three, or four, or five, or six for this new QX65. Infiniti is really pushing this, trying to get what's supposed to be the successor to their old FX in front of your eyes. But personally, I've been struggling with this a little bit because, well, it's really just a coupe version of the QX60 that already exists. And unlike the old FX, this doesn't have a V8 or even a V6. This has a 2-liter VC turbo 4-cylinder engine with 268 horsepower and 286 pound-feet of torque, which is actually less than the original V6 Infiniti FX35 made in 2003. So, reading the specs on paper and seeing this under first impressions, I was a little bit worried. There are redeeming factors about this new QX65, and in today's video, we're going to show you what this is like to live with. Now, it's one of those situations also for me where I feel like I'm the last automotive reviewer to get their hands on the QX65. I did actually drive one of these at the Mama Spring Rally, and that video is already live on the Winding Road Magazine channel, but I figured we'd get one back at home, run some errands. Emily just sent me out to pick up some stuff for dinner, so we'll go around our little high-performance loop, we'll get this into the city, we'll stop at the grocery store, and overall we'll see what it's like to live with this new coupified Infiniti QX60. Now, this used to come with a V6. Charlie and I road trip one of these to the Mama Spring Rally a few years ago. It was like a beige color and it had a V6, and that was a little bit better. The 2-liter turbo that they've stuck in this the last couple of years as a QX60 and now as a QX65, not the biggest fan. Whatever, we'll get into that once we're on the road, but I do first want to poke around this autograph trim. Autograph, of course, being the top trim of the QX65, starts around $63,000. This one as spec today in Sunfire red with a vermilion red interior is $71,000. I know you can take your hands off your pearls. It's a little bit expensive, but I figure most people are probably going to be leasing these, and maybe they'll have some good incentives as Nissan and Infiniti usually do. But as the sun comes from behind the clouds, I want to show you this Sunfire red paint in it, because this is one thing that they've really been pushing, that there are actual, let me see if I can get the lingo right, gold-coated glass flecks in the metallic, in the paint here. You can very clearly see that as the sun hits it. It's a very pretty color, and I do like the spec overall. I do wish more cars existed with red over red specs available for you to choose. But anyway, that's that. It's a $71,000 SUV. The QX65 on a base level, which is called the luxury trim, starts at $53,000, so you could get into one of these for almost $20,000 less than this car as tested today. And honestly, the number one thing you usually worry about with these coupified SUVs is the room in the back, cargo area, and the back seat that you're sacrificing. But this doesn't really look like you're sacrificing anything. It is a massive trunk, and there's no third row seat, so this is all a flat, mostly flat load surface. It's got a little bit of an upward angle, but it just means that you have lots of room for things. Golf clubs, perhaps, I don't know what you're throwing back here. This one's got some floor mats in its extra little cubby underneath the trunk floor. Always like to see extra storage solutions. And for today's trip, we might even be able to try out the grocery bag hangers. We'll see. And then these seats fold down quite aggressively, but you can see it makes this just huge and cavernous, and I could fit a few of me back here, I think. Stepping into the back seat, I can at least compliment the QX65 for having actual door handles and not stupid aerodynamic ones that fold into the door once you get going. And we'll fold this second row back up. It's actually pretty light, and it doesn't have a stupid electronic mechanism that's going to crush your children in an accident or something. All right, in the back, sat behind myself at 5'11". I've got plenty of room, and I don't really feel like you're sacrificing a whole lot with this so-called fastback roof design. If I sit straight up, the tip of my hat just does barely touch the headliner, but there's a camera on my face. I think up to maybe 6'2" or something, you'd be okay in the back seat. You've got 2 USB-C ports. You've got your own climate control panel with vents that are up here, which is an interesting choice as opposed to being down on the console or in the B-pillars, but I suppose you could still aim these at yourself decently precisely. Just gotta hope that you like air on your face. Door panel material seems to be pretty nice. We'll look at this a little bit further up front, but you do have some of this red extended onto here and this open pore wood that comes in the autograph trim as well. Bottom of the door panels are a bit of a scratchy plastic, as are some of the other materials in this $71,000 SUV. Let's pop the hood and show you this 2-liter VC turbo 4-cylinder engine. This is mated to a 9-speed automatic, so don't worry, no CVT in this. We've got some very eager hood struts here as well, and this is all-wheel drive. It's actually a ZF 9-speed, a 9 HP in this car. Now, if this engine looks familiar, it's because Nissan has had it in a handful of other vehicles. It was in the QX50, the QX65 Infiniti, and then it was in the Nissan Altima. That is where I recognized it from, and well, it made about 20 horsepower less than the Altima, but the Altima weighs quite a lot less than this. This weighs almost 5,000 pounds. It's just under, something like 4,700. So, you know, this little VC turbo engine has a lot of work to do to get this thing up to speed, and you'll see that in today's video. Okay, let's close this. I think from a styling perspective, you know, there are things that they did right with this car. I like the front end. I like the fun paint color. The side profile, it's cool, but I think having the black on the arches just makes it look like it's on stilts. And then these are 21-inch wheels, but they don't really look like it. It's kind of like the Range Rover Sport effect, where they put a big wheel on the SUV, but it ends up looking a little bit smaller. For tires today, we have a Bridgestone Alenza 265/45 R21 squared setup. Pretty standard all-season tire. I'm surprised they do as wide of a tire all around, 265. But here's the thing, okay? The QX65, yes, it's a coupe version of the QX60, but they have done many other things to this to make it sporty, which I just don't think is necessary when it comes to a car like this. So it's got a little bit of a sportier throttle mapping and steering, and the transmission tune is a little bit sportier. And you'll see that once we're out on the road. But why don't we go ahead and jump in this? We'll start it up and we'll go out and show you what this is like to live with. Your first look at the front seats, which I think look excellent. It's one of my favorite parts about this QX65. We have these integrated Klipsch speakers helping our total come to 20 for the entire car. Don't worry, we will test that out today. And these are trimmed out nice as well. They've got black on the edges. You have this nice like tan piping, white stitching. They're perforated. They're massaging. You get massaging with the autograph. All good stuff. The door panels look just about like the back. In fact, I think they match perfectly. So kudos to Infiniti for staying consistent there. You've got the Klipsch speaker grills, which look pretty nice. They're trimmed out in silver. Reference Premier. Very fancy. 2 memory seat settings. Would maybe like to see 3 here for 70 grand. But alas, we don't have it. We've got a pano roof, which I've got open to just the first setting right now. Black headliner looks nice with this otherwise black and red trimmed interior. And we'll get in this now and we will fire it up. Doors close pretty nice, and it's reasonably quiet in this cabin as well. Now, couple of things to note. I suspect, look at that, the user is a man playing golf. That's me today. Couple of things I suspect. You'll hear the car is still chiming. It chimes forever. I think this is because this might be a pre-production car. Infiniti didn't explicitly tell me that it's pre-production, but that makes me think maybe it is. I can't imagine the production cars. It's still chiming. Stop it. Thank you. And then also the key, which looks like this, is paired to memory seat setting 1. And as you guys know, I share cars with the Topher, and well, his seat is number 1. I don't want to ruin that for him because he will have to drive this car a little bit more this week. So every time I get in, I have to press the 2 button. But I think if you were actually an owner of this car, it wouldn't be a problem because you would just have the key programmed to your seat setting. So this is programmed to seat 1, and then the other key would be programmed to seat 2. But that's why I had to quickly hit that number 2 button. Anyway, though, up front, looks just about like a QX60. This autograph trim, everything is quilted. You've got the open pore wood. We saw this in other aspects of the interior. But what I like is that they haven't completely gotten rid of everything besides the screen. Which means even though this climate control panel is haptic touch and is already covered in dust and fingerprints, it's its own thing. It's got a volume knob right here. It's got knobs to adjust the temperature. These are all things that I like to see in modern day cars, and this is a 2027, so it's technically from the future, and it still has these controls. Now, you do get a little bit of haptic feedback when you hit these buttons, and I haven't had any real problems with this week. I just think aesthetically, when the sun hits it, it sort of glares in your face. It's super shiny, and it gets very dusty. Down here we have this little physical controller, which it's kind of like an old BMW iDrive knob, but I always like to have some physicality to control the screen as well. You've got a physical button to pull up your cameras. Infotainment, normal Nissan stuff, but you do have a personalized sound setting for this 20-speaker clip, which is cool. I did the sound test the other day, and it kind of tailored my own little personal EQ, which I thought was kind of fun. Wireless CarPlay, Android Auto, all the stuff. And then, you got your drive mode selector down here, extra bit of storage where I've got my phone. But you do have a wireless charger with MagSafe up here. If you're somebody that enjoys wireless chargers, I do not, so I don't use it. 2 cup holders and a pretty decently sized center console. Door pockets are pretty big too. You could fit another drink right there, and I suspect this little pocket would maybe fit a Culver's medium-sized fry. In front of the leather-wrapped steering wheel, we have a fully digital gauge cluster, which I don't think really does this interior any favors. It's the same gauge cluster as you get in any Nissan. You can go through and change different settings in here and things, but it would maybe be something Infiniti could do that would make them stand out. Maybe they put an old-style mechanical gauge cluster back in the car. It would be something unique. Okay, let's get this thing out on the road and show you what it's like to drive. We'll run it downtown. We'll do all this stuff. Into reverse, you guys already saw this camera a little bit earlier. I do like that it shows the QX65 there in red. Camera quality is decent. I have found that at night it does struggle a little bit, but during the day, you can see you'll have no problem seeing where you need to go. Into drive, you do have the front camera come up. I was going to say you're able to set it. I think I did set it to do this. And you've got leading lines as well, helping you pull up to curbs and things, making sure you don't scrape your beautiful front bumper. All right, let's get this out on the road and talk about some first impressions when you get behind the wheel of the QX65. Well, my initial one, when I drove one of these a couple of months ago at the Mama Spring Rally in Wisconsin, is that the accelerator pedal is a bit of an on-off switch. And this is something that we found in the QX60 as well. And I didn't film that personally for Topher Drives, but there's a video over on the Tedward channel, the Topher channel, and Winding Road magazine. But what Infiniti's done for the QX65 is make the throttle tuning even more aggressive, which means the smallest input really does go a long way. I mean, like 5% throttle revs this thing to 5,000 RPM. You kind of have to be like that SpongeBob meme where just his big toe is on the accelerator pedal. That's how you have to drive the QX65. Now, I've gotten used to this week, which means when I've driven other cars, I just haven't been going anywhere because I haven't been pressing the accelerator pedal. You can numb this down a bit by putting it in eco, but it really doesn't help all that much. And you don't want to have to put your car in eco every time you get in it. So we're going to leave it in auto. And then once you get going, you hear the 2-liter VC turbo, which, some of that is piped in engine noise, but most of it is just the engine because it's kind of loud, it's kind of grainy. And when I'm in a $71,000 luxury SUV, I don't really want to hear this. Emily was riding in this yesterday, and she told me that it reminded her of her Jeep Compass, sound-wise and acceleration-wise. It's not very fast, well under 300 horsepower, has to haul around about 4,700 pounds. The 9-speed delivers gear changes very slowly, but very smoothly. It's like a very old butler, sort of making his way up to you with a silver platter. Here's your gear change, sir. It will be delivered now. And then occasionally, the stability control will cut in and completely just kill power altogether. You could have your foot to the floor, nothing's happening. You are able to disable traction control, but it's in the cluster. You have to go through and, change some settings. And you may be thinking, well, since they've done all this sport tuning with this car, maybe it handles well. Well, let's find out. Come in on the brakes, chuck it in. There's a lot of understeer, I think partially because we just have a very basic all-season tire. All right, let's get this off the line and do a quick 0 to 60 here. And there it is. Okay, let's put this back down into auto mode. And we'll get this out on the highway and we'll show you a bit more what this is like to daily drive. Because that's really what the QX65 is all about. Despite it being slightly sport tuned in some aspects, I'm going to use my ventilated seat right now because my back is sticking to my shirt. So we'll get that, try and get that sorted out. Even when you're just in auto mode, it does seem to hold gears pretty long, and occasionally, when you're coming up to a stop, it'll pull some, raunchy rev match downshifts, and I think this all sort of goes into this, trying to make this feel sporty, and in my opinion, it's just not necessary for something like this. I mean, I'm getting 18.8 mpg. It's my average over the last 114 miles. They probably could have stuck a V6 or maybe even a V8 in this, and it would have gotten the same fuel economy as this VC turbo. Let's calm it down, let's float it down the highway, and we'll talk about what this is like to sit in on a day-to-day basis. Well, my favorite thing about this, actually, is the fact that it has the newest version of ProPilot Assist. You can tell because it's a blue icon right here. And this will essentially drive itself when we engage this. We'll go ahead and set it. Now, you do have to have your steering assist turned on, which is a button that lives over here by your left knee. And then when this is satisfied, it will turn blue. You can take your hands off the wheel completely, and it'll drive itself down the highway. You don't have to put your hands on the wheel unless you're going for a lane change, or if you're going through a construction zone, it will yell at you at that time as well. But what I really like about this system is that it doesn't seem nervous. You can kind of just entrust that it's not going to impede traffic like some of these other systems do, other adaptive cruise controls and things. This seems like it does the trick, and it'll even tell you to get out of the left lane at some point. When you're done making your passes, it'll say, okay, make a lane change to the right. Maybe think about getting out of the passing lane, because it isn't sophisticated enough to do its own lane changes, by itself, like GM's Super Cruise or Ford's Blue Cruise would do. But it will prompt you sometimes to change lanes. But if it doesn't, you are able to hit the turn signal, you put your hands on the wheel as it tells you, check traffic as it tells you, and it will change lanes. Now, I think this is a bit much for this. I mean, I think that they could quite easily just integrate something into this where it would change lanes without you having to go through all of that, but alas, Steering Assist Limited HD map under maintenance. Okay, it's kicking me out. Well, whatever, you were able to see it in full effect there, and in typical Nissan fashion, it locks itself in the ProPilot screen. You have to go back to the screen you were on before. Actually, riding in this down the highway, NVH, honestly, not great. It's a little bit loud. And I think this is where the 20-speaker Klipsch comes in this. You can turn that on and just kind of tone everything else out. But seat comfort is another star in this QX65. I am quite cozy in this. I'd be cozier if I wasn't behind somebody riding their brakes. Also, these Infinitis have some of the quietest turn signals. Listen to this. You like essentially can't hear it over the road noise. It's better than the one in the Ultima, which is ear piercing. So I guess two ends of a spectrum. Ergonomics in the cabin of the QX65, pretty nice. Center console is decently squishy. Driver's door panel is very squishy. Actually, I've got a very comfortable left elbow. Seating position is pretty good. I'm able to see most of what I need, and I do appreciate that the camera mirror exists, with this being a coupe design, because without it, it would be quite hard to see. However, this the mirror is scorching hot when you go to touch it. So maybe don't touch it, you know, get it set up before you go drive and then leave it where it's at. Driver's compartment is a little bit intruded upon by the center console, though they do pad this little area. So if your knee is resting against it, it'll be nice and soft, which is a good thing. Overall ride quality is okay. It's just kind of weird in the way that it has like a medium firmness to it, which I think is just kind of unnecessary for this car. Like, you guys saw it go around that corner. It's not a track star. I don't really see any reason why the ride should be medium firm, but it is. Now, it's not crashy. It's still livable, and the seat's very cozy, so that helps as well. But I don't know, I would maybe like this ride quality to be just a little bit softer. Yeah, I mean, over some of these expansion joints, I'm feeling it a lot more than I would in a comparable luxury car. You know, you can go for like speed. I don't know if speed is necessarily the right word, but you can go for like a sporty vibe without spoiling other things. Like look at Alpina, for example. I'm probably the first person in the entire world to bring up an Alpina in a review of an Infiniti, but bear with me here for a second, okay? We lived with an Alpina XB7 for about 3 months, and that car had a 23-inch wheel with a very skinny sidewall, like a 35 section, and you didn't really have to give anything up in that. Yes, it had an air suspension that was adjustable and things, but my point here is Alpina makes a car that is very fast, it's very good to drive, and yet you don't have to sacrifice anything because it's such a good daily driver. They focus on speed, not sport. That's sort of Alpina's philosophy. Also, why are we not using this entire lane to zipper merge? You've got this whole lane right here, and yet you've got people back there that are just clogging the entire thing. The Mercedes A-Class will let me in. Thank you, madam. And I always like to wave when somebody lets me in. It's always very polite. And off we go. Imagine if everyone treated traffic like that. This thing never knows what gear it wants to be in. It's searching around all the time to use that little bit of torque that it has to keep you going down the road. There are a couple little interior rattles in here as well. Again, could probably blame that on the fact that this is a very early production car, potentially pre-pro. Turn the ventilated seat off. Okay, let's talk about other inputs here because we've only talked about the throttle. Brake pedal, kind of the exact opposite. You've got this little bit of dead zone at the very top of the pedal. It kind of reminds me of a Nissan Leaf, where it's very just artificial feeling. And then there's the steering, which, as I'm sure you all can guess, Infiniti has tried to make sporty, which means that it does have a bit of a heaviness to it. Now, this isn't the heaviest steering that I've ever felt in an SUV, but I do think it's a little bit unnecessary. I would like, you know, some ease of use here, and you do kind of feel like you're lugging this thing around when it comes to maneuvering it in tight spaces, as I'm doing right now. Though we'll get it into this parking spot, which is easy because of our plethora of cameras here in the QX65. But, you know, I like to think about cars like a BMW X6 or a Mercedes GLE 53 Coupe or something like that, that is this sort of like coupe SUV thing, but they still have very light and, you know, luxurious feeling steering. This steering to me does not feel luxurious at all. So let's pull our parking brake. We'll show you what this looks like in a parking spot. And then we will go in and grab a few things from the store and continue on our journey. Yeah, fits in a spot, no problem. It is kind of a big thing. You can see it here next to a Subaru Crosstrek. It's kind of a big SUV. All right, cool. Let's pull out our key and lock it. You are able to turn off the function where it honks the horn. It will also fold the mirrors in. And there are options for you to auto lock and auto unlock as you approach with the key. I have that turned off for filming purposes, but it is nice. Just makes it so you don't ever have to take the key out of your pocket or even remember to lock the vehicle. Walking back up to the QX65 with my single bag of groceries and a little gift from the bookstore for Emily when she gets home later. We will walk up to the back. You can see we have this little button right here in the middle to open this up. And I think we'll actually be able to use a bag hanger here, at least for the bookstore bag. That fits on there no problem. I do think it's going to be a little bit high for this guy right here though. So you could, if you didn't have this full of floor mats, you could use this to put your stuff, but I'm just going to stick this one in the back seat behind the driver's seat, and it's pretty flat in the bottom, so it shouldn't roll around. Unfortunately, no rear proxy key, though. When I opened the back, it did seem to unlock all 4 doors, so that is a decent thing, I suppose. If you're starting in the back going here, that is good, but if this front door is locked, you've got no way to get into the back without going up to the front first. We'll stick this right here on our nice grippy all-weather floor mats, and we'll go ahead and jump in this thing, continue on our journey. A little bit of a quietness test, headphone users. Not bad. And I'll put my seatbelt on this time so you don't have to listen to it chime continuously. And as we pull out of the lot, why don't we give you a taste of this 20-speaker Klipsch reference premiere. Bringing back the old sound system test song because the new one got removed from YouTube, so we can't use it anymore. I do think this 20-speaker Klipsch is kind of the shining star of this entire Infiniti QX65. It's a very good sound system. You know, I don't think it's like the best thing I've ever heard in my life, but it's pretty dang good. You can kind of see where Infiniti is investing their money. And well, this sound system is one of those things. I'm thoroughly impressed by it, and I'm very happy with it. As we roll over some of these horrendous potholes here, making our way into the city, why don't we reflect on this video a little bit and reflect on the Infiniti QX65. You know, I have always been rooting for Infiniti. You know, I think they made a lot of really cool stuff in the early 2000s. The G35 sedan, the Coupe, available with a 6-speed manual, Brembo brakes, the FX45 that was, you know, what this is supposed to succeed, that had a naturally aspirated V8. They made a lot of really cool stuff. Even the G37 IPL, that was a really cool one too. They had that folding hardtop G37. But now, they make 3 cars. They make this, they make the QX60, which this and the QX60 are basically the same car, and the QX80, and that's it. They don't do anything else. Now, there are rumors that the Q50 is coming back, which is essentially going to be a 4-door Nissan Z available with a 6-speed manual, which I think will honestly save the company, because that's the sort of thing that Infiniti needs to be making. I just don't know that making stuff like this is going to get them where they need to be. And I know they've got a tight budget right now. You know, they're not in the best financial situation, but I don't think this car is going to be the one that pulls them out of this situation that they're in right now. You know, it's $71,000. And yes, there are nice things about it. I think the interior, for one, is beautiful. I love the steering wheel. I love the design of this dashboard. I love the quilted red leather. I love that it has an awesome sound system. But that isn't enough. You know, we have this crummy 2-liter 4-cylinder that sounds like a Jeep Compass, that goes like a Jeep Compass, to be completely honest, and it just doesn't wow me in any way. You've got lackluster throttle tuning, brake tuning, and steering feel. You know, there's really nothing about this driving-wise that feels like anything special. I mean, you could blindfold me and tell me that I'm in a Nissan Rogue right now, and I would believe you. Like, it's just, I'm not wowed by the driving experience, and I think for 70 grand, there should at least be something that I'm feeling behind the wheel that makes me excited. I think the styling on the outside is pretty nice with this car as well. The interior styling, the seats are very good. Nissan and Infiniti always do really nice seats, so there's no surprise there. But I think Infiniti needs to come back with a bang and this is like 10% throttle, and have that manual Q50. Maybe have a V6 or V8 powered QX65. You know, there have been rumors also that the V6 will return to the QX60 and the QX65. I think that is a much needed thing to come back to this, because even though the V6, you know, wasn't the most exciting thing ever, at least it was a V6. Something a little bit more luxurious feeling than a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder. Seems like Ann Arbor is always just in a complete state of disarray these days. The whole city is torn up. But I think a lot of what I don't like about this QX65 does boil down to this 2-liter turbo. I mean, I have been trying to picture this car all week exactly how it is, but with a V8 or a twin-turbo V6, like something that would ignite some sort of excitement within me while driving this. And I really think that's what this car needs. Now, from a strictly daily driving this very sort of gingerly standpoint, and I always try to look at cars from the viewpoint of someone that isn't a huge car enthusiast. You know, I don't really think the person buying this is going to be that into cars, but then it, you know, begs the question, why would they get this over the regular QX60? So maybe it would be more enthusiast aimed with the QX65. There are redeeming factors with this. I just think that at the price point, I would just go and get something else. You know, it's kind of just as simple as that. I mean, even a Nissan Pathfinder, looking within the family, feels just about as nice as this, and it has a V6, and it's cheaper. So I feel like that is kind of the no-brainer in this situation, but still would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this car. Again, I really, really, really want to like Infiniti, and I am rooting for them, and I hope they kind of get it together and start building some cool stuff. But right now, you know, I don't know that this is one that I would recommend. QX80 is pretty cool, and I do have a video on that as well if you would like to go check it out. I will link it in the description for you. But as we make our way through the sea of pickup trucks doing their parking garage maneuvers, my goodness, look at this now. This is actually a really good test today for the maneuverability of this. You know, the steering may be a little bit heavy, but you are able to get this where you need it to go. And just driving it, it doesn't feel massive. It is a pretty big thing, but it honestly doesn't feel as big as it looks. So let's go ahead and get this thing parked. We'll stick it right over here in this little diagonal spot. Cameras should pull up when I get close to this wall. Into park. We'll apply that parking brake. Let me know what you guys think of this new QX65. I will be reading comments, curious your thoughts, but that's going to wrap it up for us today. If I left anything out, please let me know. But I just want to thank you all again so much for watching. And well, we'll see you in the next one. Look how big this building's gotten. Wow. All right, take care.